You're listening to Business English Pod, the business English podcast for professionals on the move.
Hello, and welcome back to Business English Pod. My name's Tim, and in today's lesson, we're going to learn how to ask for help on the telephone. Asking someone for help with a problem is hard enough to begin with, but on the telephone, it can be even more difficult. You can't see the other person and how they are reacting, and they can't see you. You can't rely on a smile and friendly body language. So, how can you get the help you need? Well, don't worry. In this lesson, we'll look at some simple steps to making an effective call. If we're talking to someone we know, it might start with a bit of friendly small talk about things like sports or the weather. That helps make people feel relaxed and positive, which is important if you want to talk about a problem. After you've created a relaxed atmosphere, you can introduce the problem. You don't want to just blurt out, "I have a problem, please help me." You need to do it gently or carefully. At this point, the other person may ask some questions to clarify the situation. If they're going to help you, they'll need a clear idea of what you need. Next, you can suggest a solution or explain how the other person can help. Again, you don't want to just tell the person directly what they should do. You need to be friendly and polite so that the other person actually wants to help you. And hopefully, the result of all this is that you have some agreement about what will happen next and who will do what. It's a great idea to summarize this agreement near the end of the call, just so both of you are perfectly clear. So, that sounds like a pretty good way to ask for help, doesn't it? We'll hear all of these steps in today's dialogue between Eric and Brenda. Brenda works for a manufacturing company that buys parts from Eric's company. She is calling because there is an important part that hasn't been delivered. But Brenda doesn't just want to complain about her problem. She needs to get Eric to agree to help her. As you listen, try to answer the following questions. 1. After introducing themselves, what do Eric and Brenda talk about first? 2. What solution does Brenda suggest for her problem? 3. What does Eric say he will do for Brenda to help solve her problem?
Eric Martin, BBD Industries.
Yes, Eric, this is Brenda. Brenda Mills from Clarendon Steel. We met at the EU Manufacturers Convention last year. Do you remember our meeting at the pub after the convention was finished?
Brenda Mills. Brenda Mills. Oh, yes, of course. Of course. We had a great conversation. Did you ever get to the World Cup like you planned?
No, unfortunately, I couldn't go. I had a sudden business trip that lasted the whole month.
Well, I hope you were able to watch it on TV.
I sure did, but none of the TV stations had the games in English. But that's life. Anyway, I'm calling to ask for a bit of a favour. I hope you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. What can I do for you?
Well, I've got a bit of a problem right now with one of our development projects. This project is on somewhat of a tight schedule, and we're having delivery problems with one particular set of bearings.
Okay. And are these parts coming from us?
Yes, indeed. We did receive some of the bearings according to the promised delivery schedule, and they work fine. No problem with the parts themselves. But we haven't received any parts for the last 3 weeks.
Well, did you have a chance to talk with our shipping department? Perhaps there are some shipping delays.
Oh, there's no problem with shipping. I talked to the sales department, and they told us all shipments are on time. It seems, though, that there's a shortage of these parts, and that the larger customers are receiving all available parts. And so I thought perhaps I could give you a call and you might be able to give us a bit of help. You know, maybe shifting some of these parts deliveries our way, at least for a few weeks.
Yeah, I see the problem. That is a tough one. All of our customers have been ordering that particular part. It seems that every manufacturer uses it. I really don't know what the production schedule is for those and who is in line for deliveries. But, tell you what I'll do, Brenda. I'll go talk to the production and sales people and find out if I might be able to send a few more to you. Would that help?
Every additional part helps. We appreciate anything you can do for us.
Well then, I'll see what I can do and get back to you before the weekend. How's that?
Many thanks, Eric. That'd be great. Call me anytime at my office or on my mobile phone.
Will do. Take care. Bye now.
You too. Ciao.
Now, let's go through the dialogue again and look more closely at the language and vocabulary that Eric and Brenda used in their conversation. And we'll see how Brenda gets help with her problem by following the right steps. As we go through the lesson, we'll also give you some more examples to practice. Remember, Brenda is calling Eric, so we begin with Eric answering the phone.
Eric Martin, BBD Industries.
Yes, Eric, this is Brenda. Brenda Mills from Clarendon Steel. We met at the EU Manufacturers Convention last year. Do you remember our meeting at the pub after the convention was finished?
Brenda shows us that the first thing to do when you call someone is to identify yourself. That means giving your name and your company. And notice that when we give our name on the phone, we say, "This is," not "I am." Now, if we've actually met the person before, we should mention it so we can continue to build a relationship rather than starting from nothing. This is what Brenda is doing when she reminds Eric of when and where they met previously. She hopes that he will remember her, and this will improve her chances of getting help. Let's practice some more ways of introducing yourself and reminding someone that you've met before. I want you to repeat what you hear to practice the expressions. Are you ready?
Hello, this is John from Vancouver. We met last week in the museum.
Hi, this is Janice. You may not remember me, but we talked last month about furniture.
Hello, this is Frank Smith from Ace Investments. You called me last week about bonds?
Okay, now what if we haven't met the other person before? In that case, we usually give the purpose of our call right away so the other person knows why we're calling. If we're not talking to the right person for our problem, we want to find out immediately. So, let's try a couple of ways of introducing yourself and stating the purpose of your call. Ready?
Hello, this is James from Duraplastics, and I'm calling about a recent bill.
Hi, my name is Angela, and the receptionist told me you handle travel accounts.
Great work. So, does Eric remember Brenda? Let's get back to the dialogue and find out.
Brenda Mills. Brenda Mills. Oh, yes, of course, of course. We had a great conversation. Did you ever get to the World Cup like you planned?
No, unfortunately, I couldn't go. I had a sudden business trip that lasted the whole month.
Well, I hope you were able to watch it on TV.
By reminding Eric of their previous meeting, Brenda has set a friendly tone to the conversation. Of course, Brenda's not really calling to talk about the World Cup, but they are making small talk. Small talk is conversation about small or not so important topics. In English, we like to make small talk before discussing business because it helps build a good relationship. And if someone asks you about sports, or the weather, you need to show interest. If you ignore small talk, you will probably sound too direct or unfriendly. Let's try a few more examples of making small talk with topics like the weather, sports, and travel. You'll notice that we can ask a question or we can make a comment about something we know the other person is interested in.
How's the weather over there?
I see that your football team is doing pretty well this month.
How's your travel schedule? Where have you been this last week?
Now, Eric asked Brenda if she had watched the World Cup on TV. Let's listen to her answer and then hear how she starts talking about the real reason she called.
I sure did, but none of the TV stations had the games in English. But that's life. Anyway, I'm calling to ask for a bit of a favour. I hope you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. What can I do for you?
Notice that Brenda doesn't just answer yes. That's not good small talk. She gives a bit of explanation before using the word anyway to change the conversation to a new topic. Brenda wants to start talking about her problem, but does she say exactly what it is? Well, not yet. Instead, she says that she needs a favor or a bit of help, and she very politely says she hopes Eric doesn't mind or isn't bothered by her request. So, it might sound strange, but it's like asking for permission to ask for help before you actually ask for help. This is one way to make the other person more open to your request. At this point, it's not clear what kind of problem Brenda has, so Eric wants to find out. He does this by asking open questions, which are sometimes called WH questions, such as who, what, where, when, and why. The opposite is a closed question, also known as a yes-no question. You can answer a closed question with a simple yes or no, but open questions are a great way to get information and clarify a problem. Now, let's practice some more open questions for gathering information about a problem. Once again, you can repeat what you hear.
What's the critical stage in your production process?
Why do you have to have all the parts before you begin the first stage?
Great. Now let's listen to how Brenda introduces her problem.
Well, I've got a bit of a problem right now with one of our development projects. This project is on somewhat of a tight schedule, and we're having delivery problems with one particular set of bearings.
Remember, Brenda needs some help, right? So she wants to be nice and polite, and that means introducing her problem gently or carefully. To do that, she uses words that make the problem seem smaller or less serious than it might really be. She says that she has a little bit of a problem, and she explains that the project is on somewhat of a tight schedule. These kinds of words help to soften her request for help. Let's practice using these kinds of softening words to introduce a problem gently.
I need a little help on this issue.
I wondered if you could give me some assistance on a certain matter.
I thought I could get a bit of advice from you on a slight problem.
Let's get back to the dialogue. Eric is going to ask some closed questions now to understand the problem more specifically.
Okay. And are these parts coming from us?
Yes, indeed. We did receive some of the bearings according to the promised delivery schedule, and they work fine. no problem with the parts themselves. But we haven't received any parts for the last 3 weeks.
First, Eric wants to confirm that the parts are from his company. Brenda could just answer yes, but she takes the chance to make the exact problem more clear. This will help Eric focus on the right solution. Now let's continue as Eric tries to identify the source of the problem.
Well, did you have a chance to talk with our shipping department? Perhaps there are some shipping delays.
Oh, there's no problem with shipping. I talked to the sales department and they told us all shipments are on time. It seems though that there's a shortage of these parts and that the larger customers are receiving all available parts.
Eric wonders if there are shipping delays, which means that the delivery of the parts might just be late. But Brenda has already looked into that possibility with the sales department. In fact, Brenda knows exactly what the problem is, but she still doesn't say it too directly. Instead, she says that it seems that there's a shortage or not enough of the parts for all the customers. Why do we say something seems to be true when we know that it's really true? It's just a way of gently talking about problems. Okay, now Brenda has explained the situation completely and politely, so she wants to get to a solution. How does she do this?
And so I thought perhaps I could give you a call and you might be able to give us a bit of help. You know, maybe shifting some of these parts deliveries our way, at least for a few weeks.
Once again, Brenda is carefully choosing her words. She makes her suggestions softer with words like perhaps, maybe, could, and might. These words are about the possibility of something happening. Instead of demanding a solution directly, which can be rude, we suggest the possibility of a solution, which is polite. What are some other ways we can make polite suggestions? Let's try a few more. And remember that we often use words of possibility. Ready?
Is it possible to move the meeting to Monday?
Why don't we ship the parts by air to make up for lost time?
Maybe you could reduce the price on the second order if we increase the quantity?
Perhaps we could ask the designers to send us another layout?
So how does Eric respond to Brenda's suggestion? Let's listen.
Yeah, I see the problem. That is a tough one. All of our customers have been ordering that particular part. It seems that every manufacturer uses it. I really don't know what the production schedule is for those and who is in line for deliveries. But, tell you what I'll do, Brenda. I'll go talk to the production and sales people and find out if I might be able to send a few more to you. Would that help?
Eric certainly seems understanding. He agrees that Brenda's problem is tough or difficult, and he explains that he's not sure what the production schedule is. Still, he wants to help Brenda, so he summarizes what he will do. The key word there is will. When we summarize what we have just decided to do, we usually use the word will for the future. But did you hear Eric say, I will? No, he said, I'll, which is a contraction of I will. How about trying some more ways of summarizing agreement using will? You can practice the contractions I'll, you'll, and we'll. Let's begin.
Okay, I'll finish those reports and send them to you tomorrow.
So, I'll pay for lunch and you'll pay for the tickets, okay?
All right then, good. We'll both sign the contract on Wednesday afternoon.
Great work. Let's get back to the dialogue. Brenda and Eric are almost done.
Every additional part helps. We appreciate anything you can do for us.
Well then, I'll see what I can do and get back to you before the weekend. How's that?
Many thanks, Eric. That'd be great. Call me anytime at my office or on my mobile phone.
Brenda has asked for a favor, and Eric has agreed to help her, so it's important that she says thanks. She does this in a couple of ways, saying she appreciates what he can do, and also many thanks. Notice, too, that she asks him to call her anytime if he needs to. Now, there's just one thing left to do, and that's saying goodbye.
Will do. Take care. Bye now.
You too. Ciao.
In English, there are lots of different ways of saying goodbye. In fact, Brenda even says goodbye in another language, using the Italian word ciao. Sometimes this is a friendly way to end a conversation. How about trying some more common ways to say goodbye? Are you ready to repeat what you hear?
Goodbye.
Talk to you later.
Bye now.
Take care.
Good talking with you.
Cheers.
Great! Brenda has asked Eric for some help with the problem, and he's agreed to help her. Brenda didn't just complain and demand a solution. Instead, she took a friendly approach, made some small talk, and gently explained her situation and asked for help. Now, let's practice some of the language we just learned with a short role play. Imagine that you have some problems with your internet connection. You need to call someone at the internet provider to ask for some help. You will hear a statement from an agent at the internet company. Then I will suggest how you can respond. Use my suggestion to answer the question. I'll guide you through each step of the practice and will provide an example answer for each response. Ready? Let's give it a go.
Hello, this is Jane at StarTel. How can I help you today?
Start by introducing yourself as Kelly and say you're calling about internet service.
Answer. Hello, my name is Kelly, and I'm calling about our internet service.
Hello, Kelly. I'll be glad to help you. Could you tell me what the issue is?
Now, tell Jane that you are having a few problems with your internet connection.
Answer. Yes, well, we seem to be having a little problem with our internet connection.
Okay, sorry to hear that. We can try to get a technician out to you in the next few days.
Now suggest that it would be better if they send a technician in the afternoon.
Answer. I see. I think it would be better if you could send a technician out this afternoon.
Okay, let me see. I think I can schedule Brad to come out at 1 p.m.
Now agree and summarize what will happen.
Answer. Okay, so we will have a technician here at 1 p.m., right?
Yes, we'll get your problem fixed right away.
Now, thank the person and say goodbye.
Answer. Okay, thank you. Bye now.
To finish off, let's practice some of the vocabulary and expressions we've covered in this lesson. In a moment, you'll hear a series of sentences with a word replaced with a beep. Repeat each sentence, including the missing word. For example, if you hear,
The shipment went out late, so there will be a on your delivery.
you can say,
The shipment went out late, so there will be a delay on your delivery.
after each response, we'll provide the correct answer. Let's begin.
We need to work over the weekend because the project has a tight Answer. We need to work over the weekend because the project has a tight schedule.
I hope you don't. If we change the meeting time to 3. Answer. I hope you don't mind if we change the meeting time to 3.
I was wondering if you could do a small for me. Answer. I was wondering if you could do a small favor for me.
I will talk to my boss and get to you by email tomorrow. Answer. I will talk to my boss and get back to you by email tomorrow.
That's all for this lesson about asking for a favor on the telephone. We've learned how to introduce ourselves, make small talk, and how to ask open questions to clarify the problem. We've also looked at how to gently introduce a problem, suggest a solution, and summarize agreement. And finally, we've practiced different ways of saying goodbye. For more practice, premium members can find online quizzes and study notes for this lesson and hundreds of others on the Business English Pod website. If you're not a member yet, you can sign up for a free trial to see some of these extra resources. Just head over to our website at www.businessenglishpod.com. Thanks for listening, and see you again soon.
Welcome to Business English Pod, a great way to improve your English skills on the go.
So, Clayton, we're starting a new series on making telephone calls in English. Can you explain the background or the story behind these phone calls?
Sure, Peter. These calls are about a contract between a large aircraft company and one of its suppliers, also known as a subcontractor. The contracts department from the large company is calling to ask about a proposal it is expecting from the supplier for a new contract. Time is very short for all the proposals to be received, and so far, the aircraft company hasn't received anything from the supplier.
Good morning, Airtronics. Claire speaking. How may I help you?
Yes. Good morning. This is Nathan from Cyclops Aircraft. Could you put me through to George Klein in your contracts department?
Oh, I'm sorry, but we're closed for the holidays and I'm just here to take messages and handle emergencies. May I know what it's in connection with? Perhaps I can take a message for you?
Well, Claire, this is very urgent. I'm the subcontracts manager for Cyclops, and the reason I'm calling is that I have some important information on a contract your company is interested in. Could you get this information to George right away?
I'll see what I can do. If I can get some important details on this contract, I should be able to get a message through to George. Then perhaps he can call you back.
Okay. Do you have a pen? I'm going to give you my contact information and ask that he call me as soon as possible.
Just a second. And yes, ready now. Go ahead.
Okay. This is Nathan Beale from the Contracts Department at Cyclops Aircraft.
Nathan I'm sorry. Could you spell Beale for me?
Sure. That's B as in boy, E as in echo, A-L-E.
B-E-A-L-E. Got it. And your phone number?
It's 415-555-3567 at extension 309. Can you read that back to me?
Getting it. Okay. Let me repeat that back to you. That's 415-555-3567 at extension 309. And he should call you right away. Anything else?
No, that's the most important part. Please tell him that this is about a very important contract, and your company must send us a proposal before next Friday.
Okay, important contract and a proposal is due before next Friday. I'll try to get this message to him immediately.
Very good. Many thanks. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Short and sweet. When answering the phone at your business, it's important to let the caller know who or what department is answering, so he doesn't have to ask several questions to find this out. Answering with just hello tells the caller nothing. When answering an external call, the most helpful way to answer is by giving your company name, your department, and your name. However, many receptionists may answer with just their company name and their own name. What about for internal calls? When answering internal calls, you should at least give your name and maybe your department. Sometimes it's okay just to give your department name, such as with, "Hello, accounting." Here are some example phrases used when answering a call. Think about which ones would be used for external calls and which for internal calls.
Answering calls. Good morning, Acme Rockets. Wiley speaking.
Hello, Science Theatre, Tickets Department, Pearl speaking.
Mike Nelson.
Admissions Office, Heidi.
Callers should also identify themselves and let the receiver know why they are calling. Here are some ways to introduce yourself if you are the caller.
Caller providing information.
Hello, this is Terry from Accounts.
Hello, my name is Eric Johnson from AVI Incorporated.
Yes, this is the test department calling about the...
Once you've identified yourself, you might need to ask to speak to a particular person or department, especially if there is a receptionist.
May I speak to...
I'd like to speak to...
Could you put me through to...
Could I have extension 211, please?
May I speak to someone in the accounts department, please?
You should also let the receiver know why you want to speak to this person by explaining your reason for calling using phrases such as these.
Explaining the purpose. Caller. I'm calling about...
The reason I'm calling is...
It's about...
It's in connection with...
Very often, a caller will ask to speak with someone or may ask for information without identifying himself or what the call is about. In our example dialogue, Nathan asked Claire to transfer him by saying, "Could you put me through to George Klein?" Sometimes the identity and purpose of the caller are not important, and sometimes they are. If they are important, the receiver may ask who the caller is by using these phrases.
Identifying the caller. Who's calling, please?
May I know who's calling?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
And then Claire asked Nathan about the reason for the call by saying,
May I know what it's in connection with?
Here are some other polite ways to ask about the purpose of the call.
Getting information from the caller.
May I ask what it's regarding?
May I ask what this is in reference to?
Nathan next asks Claire to get some information to George. Claire answers that she can by saying, should be able to get a message through to George. Here are some ways to ask a caller if they'd like to leave a message for the person they're trying to reach.
Offering to take a message. Would you like me to take a message?
Could I take a message?
Would you like to leave a message?
Would you care to leave a message?
And here are some phrases a caller uses to ask the receiver to take a message.
Asking to leave a message. May I leave a message?
Could you take a message, please?
Leaving a message containing information only.
Could you tell her that?
Leaving a message requesting action.
Could you ask him to?
One important rule for both caller and receiver is always let the other party know what is happening, especially when you have to leave the phone, are busy finding information, or when you're transferring them. They can't see you. And if there are long silences, they begin to wonder if you're not listening or worse, have left them completely. For example, when Nathan asks Claire if she has a pen to write a message, she says, just a second. This is an expression that means just a moment. If she didn't say anything, Nathan would probably start giving his message before she could write it down. And when Nathan asks Claire if she wrote down all the message information, she says, getting it, to let him know she's still writing. While Claire was writing down the message, she asked how to spell Nathan's last name. Nathan used what we call the telephone alphabet. The telephone alphabet uses common words and names that can be easily understood over the phone to represent the letters of the alphabet. For example,
spelling out a name.
That's A as in apple.
That's G as in George.
That's I as in India.
After Claire takes down the message, Nathan asks her to confirm that all the information is correct by asking, can you read that back to me? This means he wants Claire to repeat the information he just gave her to make sure she wrote it down correctly. As the receiver of the message, you should always read the message back to the caller. If the caller does not ask you to confirm the message, you should still read it back to him anyway. You might say, let me read that back to you. Or, here's what I have. Then read the message back to the caller. Here are some phrases to ask for confirmation and to tell the caller that you'll send the message.
Confirmation.
Can I read that back to you?
Could you read that back to me?
So, let me make sure I've got your name right.
Confirming you'll pass on the message.
I'll give her the message.
I'll make sure she gets the message.
I'll pass the message on to Mr. Phillips.
And our final message today is that we have 2 more telephone podcasts in this series. So please tune in next time to hear more telephone techniques and phrases. See you then. Thank you for listening to Business English Pod. We'll be back next week with a new podcast. You're listening to Business English Pod, the Business English podcast for professionals on the move. Today we continue our series on telephoning by looking at how to deal with technical problems and clarify information using alternative choice questions. These are questions where you provide 2 choices connected with or. For example, do you prefer an aisle or a window seat? You should answer by repeating the choice you agree with. This questioning technique is useful when you need to clarify important information or reach a decision. So, in our first telephone episode, Cyclops contracts manager Nathan Beal tried to call George Klein at Airtronics, but he was away on vacation. Now, George tries to return Nathan's call.
Simon Price, Cyclops Contracts Department. Hello? Anybody there?
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Sounds like we have some delay on the line. Okay. Well, Simon, this is George Klein of Airtronics, and I'm looking for Nathan Beal. Is he available?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat your name? There's a lot of static on the line.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm calling from the Bali airport, and the phones here are pretty bad. My name is George Klein from Airtronics, and I'm looking for Nathan Beal.
Unfortunately, Nathan is out of the office visiting suppliers, but I might be able to help you. Can I ask what this is in reference to?
Well, Nathan called last Friday about a contract for the A420 radios, and we have most of the information.
Oh, yes, the A420 radios. Both Nathan and I are working on that contract. What can I help you with?
Well, I read Nathan's email describing this contract, but I need a bit more information in order to finish our proposal, and hopefully you can help us with that.
I'll do my best. Go ahead.
Okay, first, could you tell me whether the radios are to be shipped to you in one shipment after all of them are built, or whether we should ship each one as we finish it?
We want all 20 of them delivered in one shipment at the end. Will that be a problem?
Oh, no problem at all. All in one shipment. Much simpler. Next, are these radios supposed to have backup batteries in case of electrical failure on the aircraft?
Nope, we don't need them. We have the main backup battery for all systems in the cockpit.
I'm sorry, come again? We're having some breakups.
No, we don't need them.
Okay, no backup batteries. Now, here's an important question. Should we build these according to EU 8567D specifications or to US 4563P specifications?
Neither. These will be built according to the new XV, that's X as in X-ray, V as in Victor, 9582 specifications.
Okay, right. X is in X-ray, V is in Victor, 9582. Glad I asked. Would it be possible to get the latest version of those specifications emailed to us?
No problem. We'll send them right away. Do you need anything else?
No, that about covers it. Thanks for your help. We look forward to sending our proposal this Friday.
Great, we'll be looking for it. Enjoy the rest of your time in Bali.
Actually, I'm catching the next flight home, but thanks anyway. Speak to you soon. Bye now.
Okay, bye.
Telephone technical problems are difficult to deal with. Don't worry. There's nothing wrong with the podcast. It was just us showing you some telephone problems that often happen. When there are problems on the telephone line, we often just say, "What?" This doesn't tell the other party why you didn't understand them. They may think you weren't listening, or maybe that they have to talk louder. So, it's best to tell the other party what problems are happening on the telephone line. The first problem that happens in our example dialogue is what we call delay. This means that it takes a second or two before something that is said by one party is heard by the other party. This problem often happens when using internet telephone services and when calling from countries that use satellites to send telephone signals. George tells Simon about this problem by saying,
Sounds like we have some delay on the line.
When both parties know this, they know they should wait for the other caller to finish each thought completely before answering. They take turns speaking. The next problem that happens is what we call static. This is electronic noise, like the sound you hear when trying to find a radio station. Simon tells George about this problem when he says, "There's a lot of static on the line." Sometimes we also say, "There is noise on the line." A similar problem is dropouts, also known as breakups. The telephone signal drops out when listening to the other party, so that their voice breaks up into small bits. It's perhaps easiest to demonstrate what this is. This is what dropouts sound like. When this happens in our dialogue, George asks Simon to repeat what he said and tells him what the problem is by saying,
I'm sorry, come again, we're having some breakups.
We could also say to the other party, I didn't catch that. You're breaking up. Here are some other phrases to explain a telephone problem and to ask the other party to repeat what they said.
We seem to have a bit of a delay.
I can barely hear you. There's quite a bit of static on the line.
There were some dropouts just then. Can you repeat that?
And asking for the speaker to repeat himself.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat what you said?
I'm afraid it's a bad line. Could you speak up?
Sorry, what was the name?
George tells Simon,
I'm looking for Nathan Beal. Is he available?
George is not actually looking for Nathan. This just means he wants to talk to him. But Simon tells him he's not in the office, since he is away visiting other companies. Here are some other phrases to say why somebody can't come to the telephone.
I'm sorry, but his line is engaged.
I'm afraid he's not in the office at the moment.
I'm sorry, but she's on a business trip.
I'm afraid he's in a meeting.
I'm sorry, but he's off today.
I'm afraid she's just popped out for lunch.
I'm sorry, but he's not at his desk at the moment.
Although Nathan is not in the office, Simon tells George that he can help him and asks George what information he needs by saying,
What can I help you with?
Then he asks George to begin asking questions using the expression, go ahead. When talking about shipments, Simon asks if George will have any trouble delivering all the radios in one shipment. He asks,
Will that be a problem?
He could also say, any problem with that? These are ways of confirming that your requirements can be met. They next talk about backup batteries. The word backup is used here as an adjective, meaning a replacement if the first battery fails. So, we have backup lighting systems in offices and backup batteries for computers in case electrical power fails. Sometimes we use the word emergency instead of backup, such as with the phrase emergency power system. In our dialogue example, backup batteries are not required in the radios. Simon says,
Nope, we don't need them.
Nope is an informal slang way of saying no with emphasis. George's last question is about specifications. Specifications are statements that give information about something that is to be built. It may include the size and shape of an object or what it must do. These statements usually use the word must, since they talk about things that are required. For example, if you were giving specifications for a new desk, you might say, it must be 1.5 meters long and 1 meter wide. Simon makes sure that George clearly hears which specifications they require by using the telephone alphabet, which we explained in our last podcast. He says,
These will be built according to the new XV, that's X as in X-ray, V as in Victor, 9582 specifications.
After all the questions are answered, Simon asks if there is anything else that George needs, and George answers with the expression, that about covers it, which means that everything is finished. These are what we call closing signals, which are used to tell the other party that the call is soon to be finished. Here are some examples of closing signals.
I think that covers everything.
Is there anything else?
I'm afraid I've got a meeting now.
I'm sorry, I must leave it there.
George tells Simon that they'll be sending their proposal very soon, and Simon answers that they'll be waiting to receive it with the expression, "We'll be looking for it." After business is completed, it's common for people to thank the other person for calling, to wish each other well, and to talk about the next time they'll meet or talk on the telephone. Here are some examples of phrases to use after the business talk is over.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling back.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you for your help.
I look forward to seeing you soon.
I look forward to meeting you.
I look forward to hearing from you.
I look forward to our next meeting.
Me too.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Have a good journey.
You too. Have a good holiday.
You too. Speak to you soon.
And we hope to be speaking to you soon in our final podcast in this 3-part telephone series, in which we'll talk about handling telephone transfers and difficult customers. See you then. You're listening to Business English Pod, the Business English podcast for professionals on the move. In our last podcast, we talked about problems with the telephone line. Today, we're going to talk about problems with the caller, which are, of course, much harder to handle. But with the proper language and phrases, you can show the caller that you want to help and reassure them that you can help solve the problem. Previously, George Klein of Aerotronics returned Nathan's call, but Nathan was out of the office. George talked to Nathan's colleague Simon, and he gave George all the information he needed to finish the contract proposal. But Simon did not tell Nathan that George called. Now, Nathan is calling George Klein to ask him why he did not call him, and if Aerotronics is going to send him a proposal.
Good morning, Aerotronics. Claire speaking. May I help you?
Yes, good morning. Did you say Claire? I believe I spoke with you last week. This is Nathan Beale from Cyclops.
Oh, yes, Mr. Beale. I located George Klein from the contracts department and delivered your message the same day. Is there anything I can help you with?
Well, yes, indeed. I haven't heard from him, and I haven't seen any proposal yet. Can I speak with him? It's urgent.
Certainly, sir. I'll put you right through. Please hold the line for a moment.
George here. What's up?
Hey, George, this is Claire. I've got Nathan Beale from Cyclops on the line, and he's pretty mad that you didn't call him back. Just wanted to warn you. I'm putting him through right now.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, this is George Klein.
Yes, this is Nathan Beale from Cyclops. I haven't heard from you, and I'm trying to find out if you are still interested in this contract.
Yes, we certainly are. I do apologize for not contacting you directly, but I did try to call you this week about the contract, but you were out of the office. But we're working very hard on this contract, and we'll be sending it to you today.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, but I wish you had let me know you were sending it to us today. Today's the deadline for proposals, you know.
Yes, and we've been working night and day to meet that deadline. I called earlier this week and spoke with Simon Price to tell him that we were going to send you this proposal by today. Did he pass that on to you?
Huh. No, he didn't. I guess he was pretty busy. But, more importantly, do you have all the right information to make your proposal?
I believe we do. One shipment at the end, no backup batteries in the radios, and all 20 radios built according to the new XV9582 specifications. Did we get that correctly?
Yes, that's all correct. I just wanted to make sure. It would be a big mess if your proposal didn't have all those details in them. So, are you absolutely sure you'll be able to send that to me today? I have a lot of people over here who want to read it immediately.
Nathan, we guarantee this will be on your desk by 3 p.m. All we have to do now is to get our CEO to sign it, and it will be on its way by courier.
Okay. I just want to be sure that it's coming today. Can you call us when you give it to the courier?
Will do. Is there anything else?
Nope, just that. Talk to you then. Bye now.
Bye-bye now. When Nathan calls Airtronics, he is a bit angry because he earlier asked that George Klein call him back, but he didn't. So when Claire answers the phone, he says,
I believe I spoke with you last week.
In this case, using the phrase, I believe, is a polite and formal way of saying, you know that I talked to you last week. His formal language shows that he's a little bit angry and doesn't know who is to blame for why George didn't call him back. Claire tells him that she sent Nathan's message to George and that he received it, and then asks if there's anything else she can do to help him. Nathan now wants to talk directly to George and asks to be transferred. Claire says,
I'll put you right through. Please hold the line for a moment.
To put you through means to transfer your call, and to hold the line means to wait as the call is transferred or while the other party has to do something away from the phone. It's important to say this before you push the hold or transfer button on your telephone. Otherwise, the caller might think you hung up, and when they call back, they'll be very angry. Here are some useful phrases for transferring a call and putting a caller on hold. Notice how we use the phrase the line to mean a telephone connection or extension.
One moment, please. I'll put you through.
Please hold, I'll transfer you.
I'm putting you through.
Would you mind waiting a moment? The line is busy.
I'm afraid his line is busy. Please hold on.
I'm afraid she's busy. Can I help or take a message?
There is usually a big difference in the language used for external transfers, such as when Claire transfers Nathan, and internal transfers within a company. An internal transfer uses more informal language, since the parties are colleagues. Here are some common phrases for internal transfers.
I've got Ms. Jones on the line.
I've got a Ms. Jones on the line.
Ms. Jones is on the telephone.
And Ms. Jones is on the telephone.
George uses very informal language with Claire, but quickly changes his voice to the one he uses for customers, after Claire transfers Nathan to his extension. After Nathan states his concerns, George apologizes, even though he knows it's not really his fault. This is normal in business. Apologizing helps to make the caller less angry. But George also tells Nathan that he tried to call Nathan back, but that he was out of the office. Here are some examples of simple apologies.
I'm very sorry.
I'm extremely sorry.
I'm sorry about...
I'm afraid there's been a mistake.
That's very unfortunate.
Nathan emphasizes the important fact that the proposal must be sent in today.
Today's the deadline for proposals, you know.
The expression, you know, helps to emphasize the point. Here are some other phrases to emphasize important information.
I'd like to point out...
Let me emphasize...
Could I just draw your attention to...
George reassures Nathan that he's been working on the proposal using the expression, we've been working night and day. This is an idiom meaning working very hard, as in, we've been working night and day to get the proposal finished on time. Nathan asks whether George has the right information. George repeats the specification number and then asks, did we get that correctly, to confirm the information. Get that is used to confirm understanding, or, as in this case, that the information is correct. So, for example, you could say,
The meeting has been changed to 6 p.m. Did you get that?
Or,
Sorry, I meant July's report, not June. Did you get that?
Nathan finally asks,
Are you absolutely sure you'll be able to send that to me today?
absolutely means totally, completely, without any doubt. And George answers that he guarantees that they will send the proposal today. To guarantee is to promise or to make sure something will happen. So George is again trying to reassure Nathan that his concerns are being addressed. And to be absolutely sure that he will send them, Nathan wants George to call him when he's finished. We use phrases such as can you, would you, and will you in these kinds of requests. Here are some other examples.
Will you do that then?
Can we leave that to you?
Would you like me to deal with it?
Shall I sort it out?
To agree on a future action, we use phrases beginning with I'll, wool, they'll, or you'll, such as I'll send it by air freight and you'll pick it up at the airport. And sometimes we might use a more informal phrase such as will do or can do, meaning I will do what you just asked. And now it's time for us at Business English Pod to say goodbye. So until our next podcast, we'll say hasta luego, ciao, zaijian, and have a good one. You're listening to Business English Pod, the Business English podcast for professionals on the move. Hello again, and welcome back to Business English Pod. Today's episode is the first in a 3-part series on cold calling, the skill of making unsolicited sales calls. Unsolicited means not asked for. So, cold calling is the skill of making a sales call to someone who is not expecting you to call. Cold calling skills are very useful in many parts of business life. To cold call successfully, you need to be persuasive, and persuasion is fundamental to business success. Whether you're trying to convince a customer to buy something or your boss or colleagues to accept your point of view. A lot of people hate making and receiving cold calls. Actually, a good cold call, when done persuasively, should be a welcome opportunity for the customer to get more value. In today's listening, you'll hear 2 examples, one bad and one good. We'll listen to the bad one first. Josh Knight of Nexus Communications International is cold calling Linda Darling, who works for the law firm Drucker and Smythe. So Linda is Josh's prospect or potential customer. As you listen, try to identify at least 4 things that Josh does wrong. Also, try and identify what he's selling.
Hello, Drucker and Smythe.
Hello, is this Linda Darling?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Josh Knight from Nexus Services International.
And how can I help you?
We're a major global provider of online collaboration tools and productivity-enhancing services that fully integrate audio and video with web conferencing. Our motto is Nexus Connects Us.
I see. Look, I really don't have time at the moment.
Well, Miss Dayfield, depending on what you're currently using, I don't know whether you have a need or an interest in our services, but with your permission, I was hoping to ask you a few questions and see if there's anything we're doing that you can benefit from.
Look, as I said, I really don't have time right now.
So, my first question is, do you want to increase your productivity by up to 15% in one easy step?
No, not really.
But with our patented Live Anywhere Platinum online conferencing service, you can meet... Hello? Hello? Linda? Linda?
It doesn't sound like Josh is going to make the sale, does it? Did you catch what he's selling? Online collaboration tools and productivity-enhancing services that fully integrate video and web conferencing. For definitions of these terms, you can check out the learner's notes for this episode, available in a few days on our website. How about what Josh does wrong? Did you pick out 4 things? First,
His voice is wrong, isn't it? He speaks too quickly, and he even sounds a little nervous. Second, his introduction is way too long, and it's obviously scripted, like he's reading off a piece of paper. This sounds fake and insincere. Third, in addition to getting her name wrong at one point, he calls her Ms. Dayfield instead of Ms. Darling. He's not really listening to Linda at all, is he? She says several times that she's too busy, but he doesn't do anything to address her concern. Finally, and this point may be less obvious, he fails to ask any questions to assess Linda's needs. The only question he asks, do you want to increase your productivity by up to 15% in one easy step? Is a yes-no question. If Linda says no, which she does, he has no way to move forward. Now, let's listen to a better example. This time, another sales representative, Steve Steele, will call Linda. He does a much better job. As you listen, try to answer the following questions. The answers will be posted in a few days at www.businessenglishpod.com. First, does Linda's company use audio and video conferencing? And second, what is the benefit of the service that Steve is selling?
Hello, Drucker and Smythe.
Hi. Is this Ms. Linda Darling?
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Darling. How are you doing?
Just fine.
This is Steve Steele from Nexus Communication.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a quick minute?
Well, actually, I'm pretty busy now. Is it going to be fast?
Yes, absolutely. I understand you're busy. I want to respect your time, so I'll be brief.
Okay.
Do your employees use audio or video conferencing?
Yeah, all the time.
Great. I think we can help you. We specialize in working with firms like Drucker and Smythe so that you can save money and dramatically increase the effectiveness and efficiency of conferencing.
Uh-huh.
In fact, we also serve Hatchet, Pritchens, and Rutherford.
Really? Okay.
If you could create the ideal conferencing solution, what about your service would you like to improve or change?
That's a good question. I guess it's a bit unwieldy. I wish we could simplify everything.
It sounds like Steve is well on his way to a sale. Let's look closely at how he handles the call. Of course, persuading different people requires different styles and different approaches. You have to take cultural and individual differences into consideration. But no matter who you're talking with, you need to ask the right questions and actually listen to the replies. For active listening, the strategies we practice in BEP 45, keeping the conversation going by showing interest, are very useful. So that would be a good episode to review. Now let's go through what Steve does in the dialogue step by step. First, after giving Linda a warm greeting, he's careful to show that he respects her time. What does he say?
Do you have a quick minute?
Well, actually, I'm pretty busy now. Is it going to be fast?
Yes, absolutely. I understand you're busy. I want to respect your time, so I'll be brief.
Expressions such as, do you have a quick minute? I'm sure you're busy, and I want to respect your time are all polite ways to start the conversation. What are some other ways to show that you value the prospect's time?
Do you have a sec to talk?
I'll only take a minute of your time.
No worries. This will be really quick.
This will just take a quick sec.
I understand. The only reason I'm calling is to schedule an appointment.
I totally understand you are very busy, Miss Smith, so I'll make this quick.
I'll be really quick.
In these examples, notice how second is sometimes abbreviated to SEC in oral English. Why don't you give it a try? Imagine you're cold calling Linda. First, ask her if she has a quick minute or a second to talk. Then, when she says she's pretty busy, acknowledge her concern by using some of the language we've just studied for valuing the prospect's time. Are you ready? Start talking after you hear the beep.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm actually pretty busy. All right, go ahead.
How did you do? Now, let's listen to an answer. But remember, this is just an example. There are many possible ways to deal with this situation.
Do you have a quick second to talk?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm actually pretty busy.
No worries, Miss Darling. I totally understand you are busy. So I'll make this quick.
All right, go ahead.
Great. So, after getting the conversation started on a positive note with a warm greeting and a signal that he values Linda's time, Steve is careful to check that the service he's selling would be useful to Linda.
Do your employees use audio or video conferencing?
Yeah, all the time.
Actually, in this case, Steve probably knew already that the answer to this question would be yes. So he's just using it to establish relevance. But this is an important type of question to ask. There's no point in talking to someone who doesn't need what you're selling. Next, Steve states the reason he's calling by explaining the benefit of the service to Linda.
Great. I think we can help you. We specialize in working with firms like Drucker and Smythe so that you can save money and dramatically increase the effectiveness and efficiency of conferencing.
The main idea here is to get the prospect's attention. This may also be a chance to state your value proposition, what differentiates your product from your competitors. To explain the benefit, you can say, allow you to, enables you to, gives you, or helps you. Let's listen to some examples.
The Gold Plus account allows you to book conferences over the phone.
It's very convenient and saves you a lot of time.
Our process will enable you to overcome the challenges you're facing.
This service gives you greater flexibility in managing your database.
As a Nexus customer, you can enjoy several benefits. These include a dedicated helpline and 24-hour service.
Using this product enables you to increase productivity and helps you to save time and money.
Notice the use of such expressions as increase productivity, save time and money, give you greater flexibility, and enjoy several benefits. As always, strong use of correct collocations makes your English sound professional and fluent. Now you practice talking about the benefit of your product. Think about a product or service that your company produces. Imagine that you're cold calling Linda. After the beep, explain the benefit of your product to her. Use such language as helps you to, gives you, allows you to, enables you to, and such collocations as enjoy several benefits, increase productivity, overcome challenges, save time and money, and give you greater flexibility. Are you ready? Give yourself a few seconds to think, then begin talking after the beep.
Wow, sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Excellent. Now listen to an example answer.
This product will enable you to enjoy several benefits. It can help you to increase productivity and save time and money. It can also give you increased flexibility in how you plan your business, which will help you overcome the challenges you're facing.
Wow, sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Obviously, everyone's product will be different. This is just an example of how the language can be put together. Okay, so far, Steve has opened the call positively, established relevance, and gotten Linda's attention by explaining the benefit of a service. The next step is the most important one. Remember, if there's no problem or clear opportunity to improve their current situation, there is no reason for the prospect to meet with you or take the next step in your sales process. So you need to establish a clear need for the service you're selling. Perhaps even push your prospects off balance a little bit by letting them know that their current product is not adequate. By establishing a clear need, you're guaranteeing your success. How do you do this? The best way is to start by asking questions. One of the most important things I've learned in sales is that most people will tell you anything you want to know. People love talking about themselves. So let them do the selling. All you have to do is ask the right questions. This is called needs analysis. What kind of question does Steve ask?
If you could create the ideal conferencing solution, what about your service would you like to improve or change?
That's a good question. I guess it's a bit unwieldy. I wish we could simplify everything.
However, rather than working from a script, which sounds mechanical and insincere, you should put a lot of thought into different kinds of questions you can ask depending on the situation. Generally, the best kind are open questions. Questions that begin with what, why, where, when, and how. Avoid yes/no questions because they don't encourage your prospect to talk. And if he or she says no, you have nowhere to go. What about your service would you like to improve or change? This is a great type of question because it gets right to the heart of the need. Linda replies that their current service is unwieldy, which means it's difficult to use or handle. What are some types of questions you can ask? Well, it depends on your service or product, the type of people you're selling to, and your own personal style. But let's listen to some examples to study the language and give you some ideas.
Can you tell me more about the kind of financial services you normally use?
Can you tell me what kind of services you are looking for?
What kind of services would you be looking for?
Would you be interested in doing all your banking over the phone?
What do you like most about your current supplier?
What are the most important issues for you?
What have your experiences been with ABC organization?
Where do you see your greatest challenge?
How do these challenges affect your business?
What kind of effect do these issues have on your bottom line?
If you could change one aspect about your current arrangement, what would it be?
If you could create the ideal solution, what about your current service would you like to improve or change?
If you could eliminate 3 of your biggest problems, headaches or stresses, what would they be?
In our example, Steve was pretty lucky to find a good prospect. You'll often have to ask more than one question to establish what the customer's need is and how it relates to the product you're selling. But once you have, it's important that you demonstrate this to the customer by summarizing and confirming what they've said. This is a kind of empathy, and it's very important to the sales process. We'll be covering this skill in the second episode on cold calling. So be sure to tune back in next time. Excellent. That's just about it for today's show. You've looked at good and bad examples of opening the call, and you've practiced some great techniques for getting off to a good start, including respecting the prospect's time, clarifying the benefit, establishing relevance, and analyzing the need. Be sure to check out the study notes where you'll find more practice exercises, vocabulary explanations, and learning strategies. In the meantime, keep practicing and take care. See you again soon at businessenglishpod.com. Want to get more out of Business English Pod? Then go to www.businessenglishpod.com and sign up as a premium member. Premium members can access detailed study notes and the new Phrasecast to practice all the useful language we featured today. You're listening to Business English Pod, the business English podcast for professionals on the move. Hello again, and welcome back to Business English Pod. Today is the second in a three-part series on cold calling. As we discussed last time, you can always make yourself more persuasive by asking well-considered questions and really listening to the answers. This principle is true whether you're selling a product or an idea.
So Clayton, last time we covered 4 steps to a good cold call. Can you refresh our memory?
Sure. We'll go through them one by one. First, respect the prospect's time. Keep your introduction very brief and use language such as, "I understand you're busy. This will just take a sec." Remember, a prospect is the term we use for the person you're calling. Second, you want to establish relevance. For example, if you're a travel agent, you can ask, "Do your employees travel?" Third, you want to concisely state the specific benefit to the customer that your plan, product, or service will bring. You use language like enables you to, allows you to, or helps you to. And last, you want to prepare questions to help you analyze your prospect's need. This means asking open questions, beginning with what, where, when, who, and how.
Okay. And why is asking open questions so important?
Well, generally because people love to talk about themselves. And if you ask them open questions, they'll often tell you everything you want to know, and a lot more. Then, you can use the prospect's own words to establish a clear need for what you're selling. And this will make your offer, or pitch, much more persuasive. Such as in today's episode, we'll study how to improve your pitch by clarifying and summarizing what the prospect says.
All right, and where do we begin?
We're going to pick up where we left off last time. Steve has just gotten to step 4. He's asking Linda a needs analysis question. So, let's continue listening to their conversation. And as you listen, try to answer the following questions. The answers will be posted in a few days on our website, www.businessenglishpod.com. First, what's the main issue or problem that Linda sees with her current system? Second, what does Steve mean by a one-stop service? And last, what does Linda suggest instead of meeting with Steve?
If you could create the ideal conferencing solution, What about your service would you like to improve or change?
That's a good question. I guess it's a bit unwieldy. I wish we could simplify everything.
What exactly do you mean by that, Miss Darling, if you don't mind me asking?
Linda's fine. Well, we use one company for multiple site audio calls and another company for video conferencing. And everyone's got to be connected to the internet to share documents. Not to mention, the meeting rooms all have to be booked on our internal system.
Thanks, Linda. I'm beginning to get the picture. From my understanding, what you're truly saying is that there's no centralized system and everything is just a little too complex. Is that about right?
Yeah, that, and it doesn't always work right. It seems like half the time we're trying to sort out our technical problems.
What if I told you there was a one-stop service that could handle everything? Audio, video, online collaboration, meeting rooms, the works, with a 24-hour dedicated live operator and help desk support team. And it could save you money. Would you be interested?
Yeah, of course. Sounds too good to be true, though.
Well, let's get together next week for 20 minutes to see if there's a fit. I can answer your questions and show you how our service can achieve your objectives. What's better for you, mornings or afternoons?
Maybe you can just send me a brochure.
Well, I can do that, but better yet, how about we just get together in person? I can demonstrate the system for you, and I'll bring along some brochures as well.
Despite Linda's putting up a little bit of resistance there at the end, it sounds as though Steve is well on his way to making a sale. So let's go through in detail how Steve clarifies and summarizes Linda's concerns. Steve starts off by asking a good needs analysis question. If you could create the ideal teleconferencing solution, what about your service would you like to improve or change? And how does Linda respond? She says her current system is unwieldy. As we learned last time, this means it's difficult to use or handle. However, this is not enough information for Steve. To establish a clear need for the service he's selling, he needs to know more from Linda.
What exactly do you mean by that, Miss Darling, if you don't mind me asking?
Linda's fine. Well, we use one company for multiple site audio calls and another company for video conferencing.
What exactly do you mean by that? Is one way to get more information from the prospect. This is an example of clarifying the meaning. BEP 35, which focused specifically on this topic, would be a great place to review for more ways of clarifying. Now, let's analyze Linda's reply. By Linda's fine, Linda means that Steve can use her first name. He doesn't need to address her formally anymore as Ms. Darling. This is already a minor victory for Steve. The two of them are getting on more familiar terms. By multiple site audio calls, Linda means conferences between several locations. Typically, a conferencing service provider uses special equipment to connect or bridge calls between several parties, which can include up to several hundred locations. Linda's problem is that one company provides the bridging for video, and another company the bridging for audio, and a third company, her own, has to be used to book all the meeting rooms, which are the actual physical rooms at each location where the meetings will be held. Now, this is a key moment for Steve. What does he say?
Thanks, Linda. I'm beginning to get the picture. From my understanding, what you're truly saying is that there's no centralized system and everything is just a little too complex. Is that about right?
I think I'm getting the picture now is an idiom that means I think I'm beginning to understand now. So what is Steve doing? He strategically summarizes Linda's need in a way that makes it clear his service will benefit her. Similar to some of the clarifying and paraphrasing skills we studied in BEP 35, This is a kind of strategic negotiation of the meaning. To be persuasive, Steve represents Linda's need in a way that makes it clear his service will satisfy that need. Of course, this works well because Steve has a clear value proposition, a clear benefit that differentiates his service from his competitors' services. So obviously, it's important to think clearly about the benefit of what you're selling. What are some other phrases that you can use to strategically summarize and clarify your prospect's needs? Let's practice.
So, what you're really saying here is that you spend way too much time on booking tickets. Is that right?
I see. So the heart of the matter is that your employees lack confidence in communicating in English. Am I on the mark?
Uh-huh. You're saying you would love to buy products from China, but you just don't feel secure in trading directly with Chinese companies, right?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you seem to be getting at is that your employee turnover rate is too high for your liking. Is that what you're saying?
Now you give it a try. Imagine you're cold calling Linda. You've just asked her a needs analysis question. Listen to what she has to say, then strategically summarize it using the language you've just practiced. Are you ready?
Well, how do I say this? Our current service is just too hard to use, I guess. We use one company for audio, another company for video, and there are always technical problems, but sometimes we have to call 3 different people to get an answer.
Now let's listen to an example answer.
Well, how do I say this? Our current service is just too hard to use, I guess. We use one company for audio, another company for video, and there are always technical problems, but sometimes we have to call 3 different people to get an answer.
Okay, I think I understand. What you seem to be getting at is there is no centralized service, no convenient way to get technical support. Is that right?
How'd you do? Remember, there are many possible replies. Let's get back to the dialogue. Steve has now summarized Linda's need and gotten a positive response from her. She even helps him out by mentioning that she has technical problems. Now he's ready to make a pitch by convincingly summarizing how his service can satisfy her needs.
What if I told you there was a one-stop service that could handle everything? Audio, video, online collaboration, meeting rooms, the works, with a 24-hour dedicated live operator and help desk support team. And it could save you money. Would you be interested?
You can guess from the context that the works means everything, or the whole package. The literal meaning comes from ordering food. To ask for a hamburger with the works means a hamburger with everything. Onions, pickles, lettuce, cheese, tomato. The whole works. What if I told you is one way of summarizing how your service satisfies the prospect's needs. This is a key moment in your cold call, the pitch, or the actual offer of your product or service to the client. Remember, the most important thing here is to restate the customer's main challenge and indicate how your service will overcome that challenge. Although there are other ways to do it, using a hypothetical if sentence, past tense plus would, is a non-threatening way of making your pitch. It's difficult to say no to this kind of hypothetical question. And once you've gotten the prospect to say yes, getting an appointment is one step closer.
Would it be safe to say that if there was a way for you to overcome your training obstacles, it would be worth discussing in more detail?
Ms. Smith, if we had a service that specifically addressed all your concerns, would you be interested in learning more about it?
If we could demonstrate a service that satisfied all of your needs, would you say it would be worth exploring in more detail?
Well, now it's your turn. Think of one of your own company's products or services, or perhaps an idea that you want to sell to your boss or your colleagues. Next, think about the value proposition, a clear statement of benefit to the customer or your target audience. Now, using the what if I told you approach that you just practiced, pitch your product to Linda. Use such language as would specifically address your concerns, overcome your challenges, and satisfy your needs. Are you ready? Give yourself a few seconds to think, then begin talking after the beep.
Yes, I have to say it sounds pretty interesting. Almost too good to be true.
Did that go all right? Now listen to an example answer.
What if I told you that we have a service that specifically addressed all your concerns and could save you money too? Would you be interested in talking in more detail?
Yes, I have to say it sounds pretty interesting. Almost too good to be true.
If you didn't have the same answer, bear in mind that there are countless possible different answers. The point is to practice some of the language you've just learned. Steve has now stated the benefit in a way that clearly satisfies her needs, and he's framed it in a non-threatening if-type question. Of course, Linda's interested. She says, "It sounds too good to be true." This is Steve's sign to ask for an appointment, which is the goal of his call.
Well, let's get together next week for 20 minutes to see if there's a fit. I can answer your questions and show you how our service can achieve your objectives. What's better for you, mornings or afternoons?
Notice that get together, like most 2- and 3-word verbs, is slightly informal or casual. It's definitely easier for Linda to agree to a casual meeting, so this is also strategic use of language. Also, as Steve has done, it's good to mention how much time you'll need when you ask for that meeting. What are some other ways to schedule the next step?
Then let's meet up for 20 minutes to discuss the possibilities. I'll answer your questions, share with you several options, as well as demonstrate how our product service will specifically fulfill your objectives.
Mr. Smith, do you have your calendar handy? What day would be good for you? Towards the beginning or the end of the week?
To have something handy means to have it within reach. So, do you have your calendar handy means, is your calendar nearby? Also, notice the good use of collocations such as fulfill objectives, share several options, and discuss the possibilities. And that just about brings us to the end of this show. Today, we've covered some key selling skills, strategically clarifying and summarizing your prospect's concerns and incorporating them into your pitch to make it more persuasive. Next time, in the third part of this series, we'll study how to deal with some typical negative responses, such as, "I'm too busy," or "Please send me a brochure." In the meantime, don't forget to check out the learner's notes at our website, www.businessenglishpod.com. There, you can find vocabulary and definitions, a full transcript, listening and language exercises, and additional strategies for practicing your English. The whole works. Thanks again for listening, and take care. See you next time at Business English Pod. Want to get more out of Business English Pod? Then go to www.businessenglishpod.com and sign up as a premium member. Premium members can access detailed study notes and the new Phrasecast to practice all the useful language we featured today. You're listening to Business English Pod, the Business English podcast for professionals on the move. Hello again, and welcome back to Business English Pod. This is the last in our three-part series on cold calling. In today's episode, you'll learn how to deal with several typical kinds of objections that a potential customer might raise. When Steve first asked for an appointment, Linda didn't agree right away, did she? As you know, it's normal for even a good prospect to give you one or two negative responses. So it's important to be ready to deal with these and turn them around skillfully. Today, we'll be listening to the last part of the cold calling dialogue between Linda and Steve. As you listen, pay attention to how Steve turns around Linda's objections. Along the way, try to answer the following listening questions. The answers will be posted in a few days on our website. First, when Steve asks for an appointment, what is Linda's first response? Second, what is Linda's second objection? And last, how does Steve deal with Linda's objections?
Well, let's get together next week for 20 minutes to see if there's a fit. I can answer your questions and show you how our service can achieve your objectives. What's better for you, mornings or afternoons?
Maybe you can just send me a brochure.
Well, I can do that, but better yet, how about we just get together in person? I can demonstrate the system for you, and I'll bring along some brochures as well.
To be honest, I'm really busy.
That's okay. I'll only need 20 minutes or less. What day would be better for you, toward the beginning or the end of the week?
Okay, fine. How about Tuesday? Tuesday afternoon at 3:30? Can you swing that?
Great, that's perfect. And you're at 52A Washington Square, right?
Yes, just tell the receptionist when you arrive.
Wonderful. I'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 3:30 then.
All right.
Thanks, Linda. Have a great day.
Bye.
Steve did a pretty good job of dealing with Linda's concerns, didn't he? He's achieved the goal he set out for, which is getting an appointment. Part of Steve's success is his persistence. He briefly responds to each of Linda's objections, keeping the pressure on for her to agree. Part of it is his voice. Steve sounds warm, relaxed, and polite. He speaks slowly and sounds like someone you want to help. As we discussed last time, it's important to understand how your voice sounds. A good way to practice this is by recording yourself and asking other people what they think of how you sound. Now let's look in detail at how Steve turns around Linda's negative responses. As we go along, we'll also examine some additional common types of objections that usually come up. Linda's first negative response is a normal one. Maybe you can just send me a brochure. She doesn't want to meet in person. She just wants to have a look at the website or maybe see some promotional materials. What does Steve say to this?
How about we just get together in person? I can demonstrate the system for you, and I'll bring along some brochures as well.
Steve is careful not to make his response too long. He just asks for an appointment again and briefly states the benefit of meeting in person, which in this case is that he can demonstrate the system. Note the use of just in "Why don't we just get together in person?" This word just makes his request sound softer. By being polite and brief, Steve keeps the ball in Linda's court. This is a sports analogy that's common in business. In tennis, you hit the ball from your court to your opponent's court. In the game of words, Steve politely hits the ball quickly back to Linda, putting the pressure on her to respond. By keeping the ball in your prospect's court, you make it harder for them to think of a suitable excuse for not meeting with you. What's Linda's second negative response? It's also typical. She doesn't have any time.
To be honest, I'm really busy.
That's okay. I'll only need 20 minutes or less. What day would be better for you, toward the beginning or the end of the week?
What does Steve do? First, he politely acknowledges her concern by indicating that he values her time. Then he asks for a meeting again. What are some other things you can say?
I understand. I'll only be taking a few minutes of your time.
No worries. I'll just take a few minutes.
I totally understand that you are very busy, Miss Smith, so I'll make it very quick.
I totally understand. I'll be really quick.
All right. So far, we've looked at how Steve deals with Linda's two negative responses in the dialogue. But what are some other types of typical negative responses that you should be prepared for? One type of common objection is, "No thanks, I'm happy with what I have." Depending on the situation, there are different ways to respond to this objection. If appropriate, you can talk about how your product will complement, that is, work together with, the customer's current product.
No thanks. We're happy with what we have. We've been using ConStar system for years.
It's great that you have the ConStar system. They're good. As I said, we recently started serving Pritchens in Rutherford. They also use ConStar. They say that what we have really complements their current service. So I think it would be really worth your time to meet. How about next Thursday, about 1 p.m.?
Another way to deal with this objection is to ask further needs analysis questions to understand your prospect's current product, then state how your product is better. Let's listen to some language you could use.
No thanks. I'm happy with what I have.
May I ask who you're using right now?
We use ConStar.
I see. What do you like most about ConStar?
Well, they let us book everything online.
Including your own meeting rooms?
No, we have to book those ourselves.
Well, with the Nexus system, you can even handle your own meeting room booking through our centralized database. And there's a team of dedicated help desk staff ready to assist you 24 hours a day.
Really?
You know something? We really should get together to talk. How about Wednesday? Are you free any time in the afternoon?
Okay, so you've dealt with, "I'm happy with what I have." How about other typical objections? Another common type of negative response is, "I'm not interested." How can you deal with this?
I'm really not interested.
Well, Linda, some of our most loyal customers had the same reaction you did when I first called, before they had a chance to see how what we will do will benefit them. We should get together. How about next Wednesday?
Also, sometimes your prospects will tell you that they're not the right person to talk to. You should ask them what they do. Then, when they reply, either ask for an appointment or ask who the right person is.
You know, I'm probably the wrong person to talk to.
Oh, I see. What do you do?
I'm the training officer.
Well, who would be the right person for me to talk to?
You should talk to Jen Mattel. She's the regional admin manager.
Great. Can you tell me how to get a hold of her?
To almost any other negative response, you can say, "Well, that's okay. let's get together anyway. Remember, be persistent but warm and friendly. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Keep your responses brief so that the ball stays in your prospect's court. Now, it's your turn to practice. Imagine you're cold calling Linda. You've just asked her for a meeting next week. She's going to raise a total of 3 objections. You should try to keep the ball in Linda's court by dealing briefly and politely with these negative responses. Each time before Linda starts talking, you'll hear a beep. Ready?
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of busy next week. Actually, why don't you send me the brochure? I'm not interested.
How did you do? Let's listen to some example answers.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of busy next week.
I understand. I'll only need 15 minutes of your time. What would be better for you, mornings or afternoons?
Actually, why don't you send me the brochure?
I can do that, but better yet, how about we just get together in person? It would give you a chance to see how the product works.
I'm not interested.
A lot of our best customers have said that before they had a chance to see our service. You know, we really should get together. How about next week? What's better for you? Toward the beginning or the end of the week?
What do you think? Of course, bear in mind that these are just examples. There are obviously many possible good responses. And remember that as you deal with the customer's objections, usually the first 1 or 2 negative responses will just be excuses. The real issue may only come out after that. And it may well be important to spend more time addressing these customer concerns. In future episodes, we'll do more practice on comparing the advantages of products or services and on employing different styles of persuasion. So, now you've turned around the prospect's negative responses and hopefully gotten an appointment. Finally, it's important to close down the conversation positively. If you're unable to schedule the next step, what can you say? You might say, "Well, thanks anyway. It was nice talking to you." If appropriate, you can add, "Well, give it some thought, and if you change your mind, please give me a call." And it almost never hurts to say, "Have a great day." And in successful sales calls, it's always very important to leave the prospect with a good impression. So let's review some of the language you can use.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to meeting with you next Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Great. I really look forward to meeting you in person. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks. Have a great day.
And that's about all for today's show. And this concludes our 3-part series on cold calling. Over the last 3 episodes, you've learned some great strategies for making yourself more persuasive, whether you're selling a product, an idea, or selling yourself. Today, you also practice dealing with some typical negative responses and closing down the call politely and positively. Remember, a key to successful persuasion is to ask good questions and listen carefully to the answers. Don't forget to check out the learner's notes at our website, which is www.businessenglishpod.com. Thanks again for listening and take care. See you next time at Business English Pod. Want to get more out of Business English Pod? Then go to www.businessenglishpod.com and sign up as a premium member. Premium members can access detailed study notes and the new Phrasecast to practice all the useful language we featured today.